The Simple 2000 series for the PlayStation 2 in Japan saw so many interesting titles be released over the years. Many of them are budget entries that allow for small development companies to get their foot in the door with games development, but also to aim sales at a more affordable market for players that don't have big budgets to spend money on games. This was also apparent on the days of the PS1 with the Simple 1500 series. Now, there are many games that were released over the years under this catalogue, and they do vary in quality. Some are fairly decent, while some are definitely not so good. But they all have interesting quirks. As between the PS1 and PS2 generations, it was definitely one of the best times for video games development, as it allowed creators to literally just throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. And these games were proof of that. Yes, some of them didn't work out that would have been intended, but they're interesting nonetheless. And you have anything from different types of categories, from fighting games to puzzle games, driving games, racing games. There's a mixed bag pretty much, and there's enough out there to suit any type of player. So with the game we'll be looking at here in this video will be Volume 109, which is simply known as the Taxi 2, which is an open world mission based game where you play simply as a taxi driver, and your goal is to complete objectives throughout each level or mission that you're in, with the main priority being to make money through collecting people on the street and taking them to their destination within strict time limits in order to achieve the most amount of revenue possible. Essentially, if you've played games with the likes of The Simpsons Road Rage or even Crazy Taxi on the Sega Dreamcast and even on the PS2 itself, you'll be familiar with this concept, but this here would be a lesser scaled down version of those games, as Crazy Taxi more specifically focuses on arcade and fast and frantic gameplay, whereas this simple entry here is more cartoon based, that focuses more so around slower gameplay dynamics, but I think in many respects it tries to focus on more of a younger audience rather than anything else. But that's not to say that it's a bad thing. If anything, with regards to the graphics and the overall design of the game, yes, it does have its quirks, it does have its flaws, as with every game in this category that was developed over the years. But there's definitely enough interesting qualities here that is worth a playthrough. If you like open world driving games, there's a lot of interesting elements here that are definitely worth taking a look. I personally like the graphical style. I think it's really distinctive in what it's trying to do. As yes, it takes elements of other games within the category, but it definitely does a good job of putting its own spin on it. It'll almost put you in mind of the Choro Q games or Penny Racer games that were released on the PS2 as well, and even on the PS1, and tries to add its own characteristics to it. And honestly, I think it does a fairly decent job of it. Now, in the early missions you will end up driving around in a standard type of taxi, but later on you will be able to unlock more cars or even faster cabs that you can use. But the missions will become a little bit more difficult, but essentially the game has you doing pretty much the same thing over and over again. But if you do like this type of game, there is a bit of fun to be had with this, especially if you're looking for something that's a little bit different and quirky. This game definitely has that in all respects to it. I just love the visual style of it. I just definitely think it really stands out compared to a lot of other games of its type, and it doesn't take itself too seriously in what it's trying to do, and it is easy to pick up and play. In fairness to it, it really is. So it definitely will appeal to a certain dynamic of player. They will get something out of it for sure, as there is enough distinctive qualities in it here that make it worthwhile having a go for sure. Now, it is a budget title after all, so it comes with all those caveats that we know that it's not perfect, it's always going to have its flaws, but it's definitely not the worst game on the PlayStation. If anything, with regards to a lot of these budget entry games, this here is definitely one of the better ones in all respects to it. It really is. I found that the more I sat down and put time into it, the more enjoyment I was getting out of it. It is actually a fun title that's worth a try. But aside from that, I could go on and on talking about the game, but at the same time I would just kind of just going over what I've already said, as the concept of the game is very simple. But if you do enjoy these games, definitely give it a look for sure. And I would love to know your thoughts of it if you have played this. And what do you think of it overall? Is this something you would see yourself playing and be interested in, or are you a fan of these open world type driving games more specifically? So be sure to shout down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other obscure and quirky driving games like this that were also released on the PlayStation 2, specifically in Japan, then leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can also check out the playlist here on screen to see a lot more of those games in action that I have previously covered on the channel. And I will see you all in the next one.